So right now, I'd like to invite Lawrence Chong for the panel discussion segment on creative leadership in AI for social impact and dialogue. For this segment, we'd like to invite Adrian Bettridge from Baringa, Adrian, and also Matthew Jones from ForB Foundation, and Ben Olsen from AI Compliance Leader, Microsoft. Yeah, welcome to the stage.
We have a sacred mission. We shall not keep you from your food. But allow me, as we sort of, tie everything up together, and our panel is about creative leadership in AI for social impact and dialogue. And Pope Leo XIV has made it his own agenda to say that the whole of humanity must be able to meet this new and present future in terms of inclusion. Now, before I engage with, in a very active dialogue with my esteemed panelists from technology, nonprofit, consulting, and so on and so forth, I just want to mention why is this topic being put in place? Because many of us here, we are not speakers. We are leaders of massive organizations, and we have the ability to mobilize movements and people for good. Now, just to give you an example, we launched earlier the Common Growth Fund based on two pillars. One is the Ready Index by Brian's amazing foundation, in which the Fortune 500 companies are wholeheartedly embracing the identity of faith in the workplace. And why is this important? This is important because if you talk about inclusion, you have to be truly inclusive of everyone. Then the other pillar of the Common Growth Fund is the economy of communion. And I just want to tell you that the 7 aspects in which we are measuring these enterprises is as follows. First is their premise and goals. I mean, what is their cause? The second is their capability and capacity. The third is supply chain. We know there are a lot of challenges with the supply chain today. The fourth is what we call co-innovation. Do they work with others? The fifth is whether these social enterprises are creating what we call microeconomies. And from those microeconomies, they can shape a larger economy. And number 6, participation and co-governance. And finally, are they building strong local communities? Now, we are very invested that the fund will be using artificial intelligence to lower costs. Just now, my brother and my fellow managing partner of Consulars in consulting was sharing about the work. I'm telling you, in order to make sure that the cost is affordable for these social enterprises, we are using AI to remove ourselves from work because consultants are very expensive. And what we want to do is to right-size that value for social enterprises. Now, and critically, I want to say that we do see a great opportunity of AI for good. And I also want to express that this is an age of abundance in terms of people coming together. That there's too much coverage in the news, negative news, about things not going right. But quietly, everyone here in this room know every one of us is doing the right stuff, just that there's not enough news for it. And when I was Religions for Peace, and I'm grateful for some members of the media who are here, unless it bleeds, it fails to leap. That means if there's no killing, there's no news. So here, we all have to make sure that the good that we do is known. So now I'm going to ask my fellow panelists a quick question, and I'll ask them to share from their own personal view. The fundamental question I ask for the 3 of my fellow panelists: is AI for good or possibly more for evil? Difficult question before lunch. Ben, please.
Thank you for having me. I think I go back to of course, the framing we heard earlier about the Rome call for ethics and the fact that it's a tool. I think we heard that from Reverend Andrew. So thank you for that framing. I think there's a perspective here that I want to bring of something we call in my group the human bar. What is the human bar that we uphold when we build technologies? And I think because of how we shape our world, we have an opportunity to shape and uphold that human bar for good. Now, we may not always get there, we may not always be right, but that growth mindset, I think, is what professionals like myself, who day in day out try to keep the technology responsible and impactful for those we serve. I absolutely think it's for good, and it can be. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's interesting, I think, and uh, eh, tools really are only as good as the hands they're in, and I think I've seen houses that have been developed by people with fantastic skill in using the tools, and I've also seen houses that have been built which I wouldn't want to go in because they simply aren't safe because they haven't been built with the people with the skill to use the tools. I think AI absolutely is a tool that can be used for good and can do so much. And I think we need all the help we can get. There is no one organization that can resolve the issues of today. And if we can get help, effective help from AI, then I think we should enlist it and use it for good and ensure that there is more good being done with it than there is bad.
Thank you.
First of all, what a pleasure it is to be here with all of you. I think my answer to your question, Lawrence, is going to come back to the people in this room. Just like there are good companies and bad companies, there are good leaders and there are terrible leaders. AI is a question of leadership. And do we have the leadership, competence, and humanity in this room and beyond that can use those tools for good? They will be deployed to benefit humankind if leaders choose to do so. I get hired, and our business is all about transforming businesses and help them to be better. And I often get hired for performance reason. There's a performance issue in a business. But the performance issue exists because probably in the culture there's an issue, there's a challenge in the culture. So we end up going to solve a performance problem that really is a culture issue. And then you dive in to try and solve the culture issue. And where does that stem from? The leadership team of the firm. Nearly all performance challenges we face, the root cause is in leadership. And that's why I've loved the presentations today and the topic of creative leadership. At the heart of the answer to your question, if our leaders choose to use these tools for good, it could be transformative to all members of the human race.
Thank you, Adrian. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so this is a warm-up part. So let's go even harder. The inconvenient truth is that the total investment into AI, into data centers, into these companies have already crossed $1 trillion. And I'll be honest with you, when Matthew and I went around London and we spoke to different investors and we said we want to use AI for faith-based social enterprises, and they go like, how much are you trying to raise? 100 million. Wow, it's too much. You should be more realistic. And I was just thinking about this because Constellus is involved in data centers. They are ridiculously expensive. They drain the energy infrastructure of Southeast Asia because there's not enough power in many of these countries. And a lot of those power will be diverted to this massive infrastructure that will rise. So there is this contrast, that is when you start to say AI for good, people will say small amount. But when it's AI for profiteering, large amount, right? So how do we overcome that? And almost it's like a stigma. The moment you put anything about faith, and I know each one of us here, we're very comfortable about faith. We got to where we are. Like I promised myself, if I rise in leadership, I'm not going to be shy. I'm a Catholic. My partner is a Muslim. Another partner is a Methodist. We're not going to be shy about that. So help us understand in your various roles, in all your roles of leadership, how can we overcome and truly say AI for good instead of AI for profit? But you know what I mean? The noise level for AI for profit is so massive, we are a shadow in that skyscraper of greed. Yeah. So Ben, please.
Well, first, I think the AI is a bit like gelato. So, there are many different types of AI, right? There's small language models, there's large language models, there's LoRa's, there's foundational models, there's frontier models, on and on and on. 51 flavors of gelato here. And I think as the transformation continues in the AI industry, we see energy consumption get more efficient. We see models getting smaller and smaller and more capable. And the path here is really in the last couple of years, it's exponentially changed and evolved. So I think on the one hand, yes, right now things are as they are, but the industry is disrupting itself in real time. So I think as we see agents come into play more and more as yet another flavor of gelato or AI, I think that's part of the mix here that's really important to consider. Now, I think in my role, what's really special about my role is I both make sure that systems are compliant, but I'm also working across company lines. So I'm working on child safety, for example. How can we keep children safe on our platforms? And this is a beautiful question. It's a hard question because we deal with hard things. And we have to innovate so fast in order to keep up with the technologies as we build them, right? I think that's part of the challenge. Also, in terms of religious empowerment and liberty, I think that's something that Gina and I are also happy to say that we're working on together inside of Microsoft and trying to figure out how can we empower these AI systems to represent religious content, religious experience well, and really bring our faith to the fore in our work. So yeah, that's my answer.
That's very, very interesting. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Matt, my brother.
I think this, how can we do as much good as we can with AI? It's an important question. And one of the things from our perspective is how do we not leave people behind? There are lots of people that I work with that they don't have access to AI or to even a smartphone or because of their circumstances. And I think if we want to do good with it, then we need to try and give people access so that they can do good with it. I think it was Gladys that mentioned earlier on about that nobody knows their circumstances better than those that are in them. And if we leave people behind as far as AI is concerned, then we're missing a trick there in that people are not having the opportunity to do good with the things that they know in their circumstances they can do good with. So I think we need to try and make it accessible and, to take the word of inclusivity, we shouldn't leave anyone behind.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then just kind of thinking about your question, I think part of your question, and this may be this group's responsibility, is to possibly reframe the question so it's not do good or make profit. When we pitch ourselves against the machine, sometimes I actually think we handicap ourselves in our ability to do the most amount of good. I'll give you an example. We ran a campaign for over a year through our business on our website every single 2 weeks about the economics of kindness and promoting kindness as actually it's the best way in which to engage, to solve problems, to do good, the best way to build a business, grow a business, and have a successful business if you put values like kindness at the heart of them. So rather than thinking about AI for profit and AI for good, how do you actually help leaders of businesses in the corporate world and in the non-profit world take principles and values that they all believe in and channel them, and so that you can make profit and do good at the same time. And it doesn't have to be an either or. Maybe there's a way of reframing this as an and, so that we're all winners in this, rather than it feeling like competition between the two.
Oh, Adrian, I love what you're saying. And I think in my own experience, and this is a very important question, there are a lot of people in charity, social impact, who feels that any project, the moment you go larger to a certain size, you will descend into evil and corruption. There are genuinely good people in the room who feels that if you do anything for good, it should be small. And the other problem is that when you do social impact projects, you have to go through so much levels of compliance. But the founder of OpenAI is pricing his AI startup higher and higher. And SoftBank doesn't have a problem writing more checks. Maybe SoftBank should think about funding this. And what do you think is the mindset of people involved in charity who intentionally minimize their work in order to stay pure, when millions of people are denied access to education? How do you deal with that mindset? Companies for profit, let's go as big as possible. Companies for good, no, keep it micro, nano. In fact, during this day, somebody said, you better stay nano. If you don't stay nano, you will be corrupted. So how do you speak to that? Because in AI, the game is actually larger and larger. How do we broaden the heart and the capacity? As what Matthew said, like I was in Nigeria, it costs a lot of money to bring smartphones to farmers, infrastructure. But every time when we talk about that, keep it small. But it's not enough. Millions are at risk. Sorry, I have to come back to you, Ben.
Everyone here has a role to play in shaping AI's future. And I mean that in your work, both how you do your work. I mean that in how you engage with AI systems. I mean that in how you discuss it with your friends and families. And I think of it also in the dreams you hold, like that you have an opportunity to filter those dreams and filter your use and development of technology or your nonprofit with technology through your heart, through the instinct you have for the good, for the true and the beautiful. And I think it really is this instinct of, in my tradition as a Catholic, the instinct of the Holy Spirit, this sense as an entrepreneur or as a founder, as a AI compliance leader, as a business leader, as a professor, keeping that close and primary and at your fingertips almost as you code or as you build. I think that's what I would say.
So interesting. It's very vibrating.
Yeah, and possibly some of the answers could be a little controversial, but I do think that what Adrian's mentioned, leadership is key. When you look at some of the challenges that NGOs are facing, a lot of the times it's leadership and perhaps sometimes a lack of vision. The issues are there. The problems are so big that they are not unable to obtain a vision of what needs to be achieved. And I think also as well, we're in a society that teaches principles to look after yourself. And that can be challenging and that could be controversial, I know. But there are lots of people out there that want to look after others. And I think the whole kind of leadership side of things is what we need. We need young people to learn the principles of creative leadership that we're talking about today, so that when we go forward in the future, they understand these faith-based issues. They understand the challenges that we have, so that when we are there, that they are the people that are inspiring others.
And I think we have some great examples of that here in this room. And what you're doing and what Brian's been doing and what many of you have been doing is creating a movement. And you've all seen that YouTube video where the guy gets up on the hill and starts dancing on his own and he looks crazy. And everyone's like, there's a crazy person. Then a second person joins them and all of a sudden doesn't look quite as crazy. And then 4 people get up and there's 6 of them dancing. Then everyone who was mocking them originally then gets up off the grassy hill and go and joins in.
Yeah.
And so what this is about is, yes, we have to start small, but we're creating a movement which has momentum in it, because actually in all of us, in the world, there's a yearning for purpose. There's a yearning for human connection. There's a yearning, even if they can't put the words to it, to spirituality, for a connection with a source and a purpose greater than themselves. And what this movement, what this group of people in this room could do is stand tall and be proud of looking like a crazy person dancing on your own just for a small period, and watch people come and join you and create a movement. And that's what we're seeing happening. I think the next generation are looking for this creative leadership, are looking for purpose, are looking for connection and to believe in things bigger than themselves, which means it sounds like the encouragement to stay small is an insult, but I think starting small is great, but it's the beginning of a movement, and watch everybody join in and help.
No, I love what you said. It's about starting small, building a movement, but growing together as skill collectively. And what Matthew and also Ben, what you mentioned is that leadership is that bringing the whole identity, not hiding our identities and what we believe in. I do have a very practical dream. I dream of a day we will not be shocked if we are talking about raising $1 trillion for social impact. And it's not Sam Altman's face, but it's all the social entrepreneurs and people who wants to make a difference. So thank you, my panel. Thank you for whatever you have shared today. Thank you.